Oh, Phil and Will are back. It's been a while. Survivor off season. It's been like a month. So without any real new news, we're going to kind of break down Kaoh Rong a little bit more, just because we've had a month to let it sink in. People are still lost, and it's great. This is fun because we've let it sink in. We know how we feel about it. We want to put it out there, kind of break down Kaoh Rong as like what were the memorable moments, what were the least memorable moments, stuff like that. Where does it fit into our season rankings? Where does Michelle fit into our winner rankings? Stuff like that. Who was memorable? Who should come back? Who should never come back? And yeah, we're going to really dive into this. And hopefully, comment with us. Let us know what you think while we're doing this. Like, if you agree with us. I know everybody's going to disagree with where we have Michelle as a winner, but I hate all of you anyway. So, let's go.
Well, I'm just going to say I'm excited that we're doing a season recap just after, like you said, we're a month out. We've let it sink in a little bit. We haven't done this before, but I think it's something we should do after every season. And we'll probably update our winner rankings and season rankings this off season. But instead of having them to go back and rank them, every off season, we can just update them. And during these kind of postseason recaps, we can just talk about the season and kind of where it fits in, like you said, the winner and the season itself. So I'm excited about this. Let's just start. Where do you have Kaoh Rong ranked? It's still very fresh. It's the most recent season. Recency bias will always be rid of that. But as of now, where are you putting Kaoh Rong?
I have Kaoh Rong at 9, and I actually have it, and since we never talked about it, I actually had second chance above it, which I didn't think I was going to do. But after doing this, I actually have Kaoh Rong down at 9. I was kind of thinking all the way up to 5. Second chance didn't break my top 5. Kaoh Rong didn't break my top 5. I got Kaoh Rong at 9, just ahead of Philippines at 10, and just behind Tocantins at 8.
Okay, well, this is very interesting because I have Kaoh Rong at 9 as well. I actually have Cambodia second chance. I have it ranked below, not too far below, but I thought Kaoh Rong was a lot better than second chance. And it's actually kind of weird that I have them so close in the rankings, but when you compare them, just going from episode to episode, I think Kaoh Rong's pre-merge was so much stronger. Every single week we were getting a really fun episode. And then post-merge kept you on your toes, much more in Kaoh Rong than second chance. You kind of knew it was going to be Jeremy or Spencer, kind of leaning towards Jeremy the whole time. And then Kaoh Rong, you had a lot of potential winners. You had, Sydney was in the mix. Aubrey, of course, was kind of the front runner, and a lot of people still think she should have won. We'll definitely address that. And then you had Michelle in there. So it was just more options, and then that finale really put it over. That Kaoh Rong finale I thoroughly enjoyed. I have no problem with Michelle being the winner. So I got Kaoh Rong at 9. I have Samoa right below it at 10, Philippines at 11, then second chance at 12, then Tocantins at 13. So those are the ones kind of surrounding it.
Okay. That's cool. I actually have second chance at 7. So I have it only 2 spots ahead. And what you have? You had second chance 3 spots behind. I think they're the same. They're in the same tier. They're not the top tier of seasons, but they're not great. They're not like phenomenal seasons. They're very, very good seasons.
Okay.
They're not they're not the best that Survivor's ever done, but they both fit into that same category, than most of the seasons. There's very good seasons. There's great seasons, and they're very good seasons. I feel like they just missed out. There's something in both seasons that keeps them from being great. And I mean, still, I put them in the top 10. It's just hard. Like, you look at a season like China, Amazon, Kagayan, Heroes versus Villains, awesome those seasons. And even Heroes versus Villains, which has a huge flaw for a bit of time in the post-merge, it's still so damn good. Where, when second chance or Kaoh Rong was a little down, you felt it a little bit more. Kaoh Rong takes a huge hit for having 3 medevacs for me. That was really one of the huge hits for, is not only do you have 3 medevacs, you have 1 at final. Was it 5? It was final 5, right? And that's huge.
Yeah, I hear that, but if the medevacs had a heavier influence on the game, and obviously any medevac has a pretty large influence when someone leaves, especially pre-merge, just butterfly effect, anything can happen. But with the way the medevacs happened, especially like with Caleb, that was such a unique medevac and such a dramatic episode and moment that I think that actually increased the season for me. Because if you look at that episode and Braun loses, then you're going with an extremely boring Alicia vote. So that medevac actually made the season better. If you look at Neil at the merge, there was so much going on in that merge. The Neil medevac's probably the one that hurts the season the most. Although it was still a fun episode. And then the Joe medevac, honestly, I don't really know if it had that big of an influence. If you're going to say, well, Aubrey had Joe at the end, that would have been she would have been able to take Joe to the finals along with Ty and win the game. You could make that argument, but if you're going to make that argument, then you have to say, well, if Neil doesn't get medevac at the merge, Aubrey would have been voted out then, and she wouldn't even be in the conversation of going to final tribal council anyway. She would be out at like 11 or something. So, yeah, the medevacs happened, but I think they actually provided some drama. And Joe going out at 5, it was Joe. It wasn't, someone that could win. So I was fully okay with that.
It always sucks. It always leaves a little bit of a damper with the what ifs when two people get medevac post merge. Like, I just have a little bit of a problem with that. And there's nothing the season can do. And I thought the season still recovered incredibly well from it. It just, when that kind of thing happens, it does hurt it. And I give Second Chance a little bit of an edge because Second Chance, you knew it was going to be Jeremy, Spencer, or Wentworth. But that finale, Keith and Kimmy did nothing. And then that finale was like one of the best. That tribal council, to me, is still like best or second best tribal council ever. With Ty and the Rocks.
Yeah, right.
Kimmy going. Like, that was incredible. And like, for me, yeah, the finale for Kaoh Rong was probably better overall than the Second Chance finale, just because the Kaoh Rong finale was like, there's no way Michelle's going to win this, and somehow she. But the Second Chance season it didn't have any like dips. I didn't feel like. I felt like it was more consistent than Kaoh Rong, which had like just one or two moments where it was like, damn, Neil gets medevac at the merge. That's a letdown. You know what I mean? Like, it just had a couple of letdowns that I didn't like.
Yeah, and I'm curious, just going back to the medevac, are you looking at that arbitrarily and saying, well, there's 3 medevacs this season, I have to knock it? Or are you looking at the actual episodes and the entertainment and like the enjoyment episode throughout the season? And if you're looking at it that way, which is how I'm looking at it, I think any medevac, like the Neil thing, is the only one that kind of brings Kaoh Rong down, but it more is made up for by just the way that the rest of the season played out compared to Second Chance, where it was getting, I think, kind of predictable with a Jeremy win. And then also, I think Second Chance, the pre-merge wasn't that great. I really, if you go back, I haven't rewatched it yet, but I remember that pre-merge was like, all right, we have these fun characters back. There was like that novelty, having Savage back, having Varner back, Kelly, Wigglesworth, even though she didn't do anything. That was fun and that was new. But, man, you had Abby dominating so much of that. You had the dumb Angkor tribe that got completely screwed for no reason. Pre-merge didn't really do it for me, whereas I think Kaoh Rong was much more consistent throughout.
Like I said, 7 and 9. I have these separated by 2 things. And to be honest with you, we did a season rankings, like as one of our first podcasts, and we have them ranked one way. And we went and found the rankings again, and we found our winner rankings. And to be completely honest, my season rankings have changed since then. And like, I think that's why we're going to do a season rankings again, because I think Will realized this too. His season rankings have changed again. And like, this is one thing where if I rewatch Kaoh Rong and I rewatch Second Chance, they could easily swap. I mean, it's hard. I mean, my top 5, it's going to be hard to break into that. But after that, these seasons, just like, what kind of mood am I in on this day? And for right now, when I was making this up and I was like, do I put Second Chance above Kaoh Rong or do I put Kaoh Rong above Second Chance? I just felt like Second Chance was a little bit better than Kaoh Rong. And I know you said it got really obvious with the Jeremy win, but don't forget, you're the guy who sat here all of Kaoh Rong for like the last like 6 or 7 episodes being like, Aubrey already won, and she lost. So it might not be as predictable as you think, because it doesn't always happen.
That's why I like it. That's why I like it, and that's why the finale I enjoyed so much, because it kept me on my toes with everything that was going on. And when Michelle, came on strong, I think in one of those post-Mortem episodes where she really had a huge episode, like, oh, Michelle is like right back in the mix. And when Sydney has a good episode, she's right back in the mix. Whereas in Second Chance, it was like, okay, it's going to be Jeremy or Spencer pretty much from the merge, or even maybe before the merge on. It was going to be one of them two. And then Wentworth was like kind of had a chance, but it was always kind of a long shot compared to those two front runners. So I see what you're saying. I kind of like how you do, or you just mentioned the tier thing. I think that's a way better way to do it. We might have to do this when we redo our rankings, because when you're taking 32 things, 32 seasons of Survivor, and you love the show Survivor, putting them in order is extremely difficult. Like, it is so hard to do, especially when there are like 13, 14 episodes per season, and you watch them at different times in your life, and there's no way you can watch them all at once and right after have them all fresh in your head. That just isn't possible. So I think the tier thing is really good. Like you said, these are both like that second tier, not that like the best of the best seasons. You're just right below it. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, they're not top 5 seasons, but they're damn close. They're close to it. All right, so let's go to our win. We can do Jeremy. I think we already had thrown Mike in because I think we had done Worlds Apart, like in hindsight or whatever. I know for Worlds Apart in my season rankings, I don't think it was in our original season rankings. I have it all the way down to 24, just in case anybody cares. But
I have it at 27.
27. So Worlds Apart started strong and then just completely fell apart. But let's talk. We're mainly Michelle because this is about Kaoh Rong, but we didn't get to talk about Jeremy last time. Where do you got Jeremy? Where do you got Michelle in your winner rankings? And focus mainly on Michelle. Yeah?
I have Jeremy at 10, who is right below Kim. Actually, I should probably be higher on Kim, but for now she's at 9. We'll have to redo these as well. But I have Jeremy at 10. JT's at 11. So that's between JT and Kim at 10. I think that's fair place for Jeremy. We'll probably talk about that more when we redo our winner rankings. And then Michelle I have at, let's see, I have her at 18. I have her right above Natalie Anderson. Natalie Anderson, likely a more strategic thinker, but that doesn't always mean you're the better player or that your win was better. I think Michelle had just so much better competition than Natalie Anderson that I'm going to give it to Michelle. And then I have Parvati at 17. So Michelle is in between Natalie Anderson and Parvati.
Okay. It's funny, Michelle, I have at the same spot, and it's funny you're talking about Kim. I have her at 9 too. I changed up my winner rankings so damn much from when we did the winner rankings last time because, like, now we're like I feel like we're established, and I can say whatever the hell I want. And I just, like, remade this list because I couldn't find my winner rankings. And then it turns out I found my winner rankings, and I kind of compared them to each other. I was like, wow, I really mixed it up a lot. But anyway, I got Jennifer just under Yule, just above Parvati and Earl. So I have him like – He's like another one. He's close to being a great winner, but he wasn't quite a great winner. Like, he was very close, and he played a fantastic, fantastic game. But I just
so he won unanimously in an all-returnee season. What are we docking Jeremy for here? I know my reason. I'm curious. Like, what is your reason?
It's tough. I don't really dock him for one thing specifically. I guess if I had to dock him for anything, it was that he was – and I hate doing this because it wasn't all returnee season, so it's hard to, like, sit here and say this. But it was his second time playing, and he had figured it out a little bit better than other people. And, like, he should have been coming in with a bigger target on his back than he did, but he didn't come in with that big of a target on his back, I don't feel like. And he really – the game, and I think he played a very good game. Like Yule, who in the final went up against Ozzy, and like I think Ozzy should have won that game, and I think Yule won that game and earned it. And you look at somebody like Kim, who she didn't play against great competition, but it was her first time playing, and she absolutely owned it. And yeah, the competition sucked, but like Jeremy was going up against people who weren't that great of players too. I mean, yeah, it was second chance, and yeah, you thought they'd all be wasn't really a player. Abby Maria was like Kimmy and Keith. It seemed like Kimmy was trying to make moves, but just never got her footing. Keith was never going to do anything. I don't know. I don't know what my specific reason is for docking Jeremy. I would have to really like get into it. If we were doing like a winners ranking episode, I would have more for it. But I just put him at 13 because.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I think with the reasons why he's, like I said, he won unanimously. That's extremely difficult to do. I have a number 10. Every winner I have above Jeremy won on their first try, and I think that is where a lot of it comes from. Where if you go out and Jeremy, he went out. I think he was the merge boot or the boot after the merge.
The one after, because Julie got medevac at the merge.
And then we say returning, and you touch on this too. You say returning season, your first thought is like all-stars. Like these are all-star players we're bringing back. And that's not necessarily the case. As you mentioned with Keith, Kimmy, you have outspoken players like Varner, Abby, Cass is in there. People that are there for entertainment. Remember, Wu is in this season. I mean, they're just – it wasn't it wasn't the toughest competition. So you could play on – the first season that you go on can be much tougher than a returning season. An example of that is Cagayan, I think, had a lot of strong people. Even Kaoh Rong had a ton of strong people. Obviously, there were some idiots mixed in, but there are idiots on every season. So that's kind of where I have him. And then Michelle, I'll let you talk first about Michelle. We got a lot of comments on our finale recap saying that Aubrey should have won. It's so simple. It's so obvious. I really, really strongly disagree. And I kind of have, not a rant, but have some points that I would like to bring up. But I'll let you talk about Michelle first because she was your winner pick. She's your Jersey girl. So, Phil, take it away.
My girl. I'm Michelle 18, which is exactly where you had her. I got her just above Sophie and Ethan. I actually have her below Natalie Anderson and Aris. I have Aris at 17. A big jump for me because, like, thinking about Panama again, he controlled the craziest group of people ever. Big jump for me when I was re-ranking these. But I have Michelle at 18.
Wait,
I know everybody wants to say she's like bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have Aris at 13, and then I have Sophie above Michelle. Just wanted to, get those in there.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
But my thing with Michelle is everybody wants to say she's a bottom 5 winner. She's a bottom 10 winner. And I had tweeted this out, and I think I mentioned it when we did like a finale recap or in our last podcast. I don't even remember what it was. But I had tweeted it out. Everybody wants to say Michelle did nothing, and she wasn't a part of the season, and she was this, that, and whatever. Michelle had the second most confessionals of any female winner ever other than Tina Wesson. And, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean everything, but don't sit here and compare her to Natalie White. Like, you can't do it. Because everybody who sits here and says, oh, well, Phil, you rip on Natalie White because she shouldn't have beaten Russell, and you say, well, what the TV shows me, how can you put Michelle higher? Because Natalie White had nationals the entire season, and Michelle had 54. I knew where Michelle's head was at this season. I knew what her game was. Her game was a social game. She came in and she knew she didn't have much strategy and she didn't have the physical ability. So her goal was to come out and play socially. And that's why I have her at 18. She went against the best at the end and won. It's not like Anderson who goes up against Jacqueline and Missy in the end and wins. And I do have Natalie Anderson above her because I think Natalie Anderson is a better overall player. But
see,
Michelle,
that's not the question. It's not this. This isn't player rankings. It's like winner rankings. Whose game was better? And I think Michelle's game was better than Natalie Anderson's.
I think they're very close. I think this comes down to second chance versus Kaoh Rong, where they're very close.
And I think Natalie Anderson got away with some things that, I mean, her competition might have been the worst in Survivor history. That might have been like the dumbest, most uneducated about the game of Survivor, like not knowing. They were full of recruits that just did not know the game at all, while she was an amazing race player and had watched Survivor and was a fan and like understood how to play. The things she got away with were insane. That just quickly, I think Michelle better than her.
But anyway, to my Michelle points, just Michelle, to me, she is the best winner of the average bunch. Like, she played a good game. She didn't play a great game. She didn't even play a very good game. She played a good game, and she did what she had to do to win. And she's the best player at that game. There's nothing wrong with the way Ethan Zahn played the game, but you're not going to put him as a top 10 winner. There's nothing wrong with the way Sophie played the game, but you're just not going to put her as a top 10 winner. And that's where Michelle lies. The difference between Ethan and Sophie is you think that Coach is some big threat, but Coach was never going to win the game. Ozzy, if Sophie can sit there against Ozzy and beat Ozzy at the end, Sophie might be a top 10 winner. Because that means like she went against the best and somehow pulled that off. The fact that nobody gives Michelle any credit for beating who everybody thinks should have won is insane. It's insane to me. Because it shows that her social game was just that much better than Aubrey's. It's just so much better than Aubrey's. She was so much better of a player than anybody will ever give her credit for. And we're going to get into like who should come back, who should never come back. I hope Michelle never comes back. I hope she just gives a big middle finger to the entire Survivor viewing audience because they've been awful to her since the season ended. They've been awful. And I hope she never comes back because you know what? She did what she had to do. She won the game. Screw you guys. Like that's the way I'm looking at it if I'm Michelle. I hope she doesn't come back because she's going to come back. She's going to be voted out somewhat early and people are going to be like, see, told you so. And it's like, no. This season, was it a perfect game? Absolutely not. She played one of the best social games ever and won the game. I
agree. And I think so much of this Michelle kind of saying she's a bottom tier winner, that she had no game, she got lucky, all of these things that you keep hearing, I think it stems from pretty much one reason, and that reason is that Aubrey was shown to be like it was Aubrey's season. She was the narrator. She was the strategic mind of this season. She got to the finals and she lost. So people can say Aubrey deserved to win. Mm-hmm. Michelle didn't deserve to win because Aubrey was a choice for the jury. That's where I think so much of this comes from. Mm-hmm. And it's not a case where like you can look at Amazon and say, man, Rob, he was great, but he didn't make it to final tribal council. He didn't. Jenna got the votes. Jenna deserved to win. Rob never got there. And I think people are like, why did Aubrey not win when she had a chance? Like, she was there. So I kind of want to talk about Aubrey because that's, I think, where everyone's wrong about this. If we look at Aubrey's game, I have like 5 points I kind of want to talk about Aubrey. It might go a little long. I'll try to be as quick as possible. But like I already mentioned, Neil, medevac at the merge. If that doesn't happen, Aubrey gets voted out of the game. She is voted out of the game. So if you're going to talk about luck and use luck for Michelle whatsoever, you have to immediately rule Aubrey out as a potential winner because someone getting medevac to save you is about as lucky as you can get. And not only with this, the edit spun it the complete opposite way. When Neil got medevac, he's going to have to fight even harder because Neil was one of her best allies. It was completely spinning what was really going on. Aubrey would have been voted off. Do you see what I'm saying here, Phil? That the edit made the viewers root for Aubrey when Neil got medevac instead of pointing out, hey, wait a sec, Neil doesn't get medevac. Aubrey is on the jury.
Yes, 100%. And let me throw this out there right now. I'm on the that Facebook group, the Previously on Survivor Facebook group. Like I'm like a part of that, and people always post like articles and stuff like that. And I just got to throw this out there. And I don't know how many views we're gonna get on this damn podcast, but I hope we get a lot because this pisses me off a lot. Jeff Probst said in an Entertainment Weekly article not too long ago, maybe like a week ago, that he wanted to ask at the finale if all of the players would have voted differently after seeing the edit. And what pisses me off so much about Jeff saying that, because Jeff doesn't think Michelle should have won either. That breaks Jeff's heart. What pisses me off so much about Jeff saying that is essentially like allowing America to vote. Because now you're not basing it on what actually happened on the island. You're basing it on how these editors put the season together. And he gives Russell so much crap for saying America should get a vote because that is ridiculous because we're only seeing an edited version. So how can Jeff actually sit there and say, oh, you guys were on the island and lived through it after seeing what we put our 13-hour season? Do you think that you still should have voted for Michelle over Aubrey, even though you lived out there 24 hours a day with both of them and made the decision to vote for Michelle? Like, that to me is just so ridiculous. Like, it's just so ridiculous. And there's no way that station The fact that Jeff would bring that up, it's like, dude, move on. Sorry that a social player won. Like, I always compare it to, it's Tina Wesson beating Colby. That's what this is with Michelle beating Aubrey. Just now it's strategy instead of physical.
Right. I completely see what you're saying. I read that interview also. That completely took me off. The logic there does not hold, like you're saying. Why do the players who were there on the island need to watch and edit? Why? Why do they need a condensed version? And the only reason is because that supports the narrative that Aubrey was the better player and had the season on lock and should have won and all this stuff. When, honestly, Aubrey, without an infection from Neil, goes home at the merge. Let's continue down to Final Four. Aubrey probably should have been voted out of Final Four. And the only reason that she wasn't voted out is because of a player named Ty, who literally just, wherever the wind's blowing is where Ty is going. He was sporadic all season. And again, you can give Aubrey some credit for building a relationship with Ty, and I certainly will do that. But if there's not a player like Ty out there to use like that, and again, Ty if it's the sun didn't come up at the right time or it was cloudy, or Ty might have been feeling differently and voted Aubrey out. There's a very high chance of that, where it depends on how Ty is feeling. So there's a little bit of Ty even let you go to a fire-making challenge. So going out at Final Four, in most seasons, in most cases, Aubrey goes out there. Again, I'm not taking any credit away that she, didn't work Ty a little bit. She certainly did. But Final Four, again, very go for it.
My whole thing is people, like, I'm just looking as Twitter comments come in, like Giovanni Oriana just said, Aubrey didn't win, but she played a good game. You can't take that away from her. I'm not trying to take away that Aubrey played a good game. She played a good game. She played a winning-worthy game, but so did Michelle. And that's what I'm trying to say with this whole season, is Michelle played a winner-worthy game. So did Aubrey, and Michelle beat her fair and square. So get over it. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say. I'm not taking away that Aubrey played a very good game. She just didn't play the best game. She didn't.
I completely agree.
Was right.
I completely agree. Aubrey is a great, great player. And because she's such a great player, that is why Michelle is getting all this hate, is because of the way Aubrey played and the way she was portrayed by the edit. So those are the first two things, just that Neil Medevac and Ty vote at 4. Those things easily could have sent Aubrey out of the game. Very, very easily. And then there's been a ton of talk about a bitter jury. Well, if you're out there on an island, you know who's bitter and you know who's not bitter. And if you wanted Jason and Scott's vote, who do you bring with you, Phil, to the final tribal council? Who do you want sitting next to you?
You definitely want Ty sitting next to you. You definitely want Ty.
And who else?
And you want Sydney.
And you want Sydney, right? So you had Sydney and Ty, who both made it to the Final Four. So could she vote out Michelle at Final Four? No, Michelle won immunity. That's part of the game. Why aren't we giving Michelle any credit for an immunity win at Final Four to send her to Final Tribal Council? No one mentions that. No one gives Michelle credit. They simply take away that, the jury was bitter. Or if you think the jury's bitter, which you should know if you have a good pulse on the game and you're reading players and body language, like if you're Aubrey and you're out there on the island, you know that Jason and Scott despise Sydney for flipping. You know that they're no fan of Ty for completely backstabbing that. You know that. So with 6 people left or 7 people left, it was pretty common that Michelle was a social threat. Why not get Michelle out earlier?
Yeah.
Aubrey really never made any move to get Michelle out earlier. I think Michelle won 1 prior immunity, but she had Joe's vote the whole time. She had 2 votes. Why didn't she ever target Michelle? And I think we look at Cambodia. Spencer immediately at the reunion says, I lost because I brought Jeremy with me. He just said it point blank. That was my mistake. I knew it after Tribal Council ended. Jeremy was playing a great social game. People trusted him. He was loyal to his alliance. He's a father. He's a fireman. Not the best move by Spencer to get rid of Jeremy or to let Jeremy get to the finals. That's a mistake he made. He can own that. I've never heard Aubrey. I mean, maybe she has, but like Michelle has great relationships with everybody. Why are you letting her get to the end? And no one talks about that. Like if Aubrey was this great, great strategic player that should have won the game, why did she let Michelle get to the end? So that's the bitter jury.
Hear me out on this. if you're Aubrey, at final 6, Michelle does not have immunity. Why are you not voting her out of the game and you vote Jason out instead?
Exactly. And you vote Jason, who is someone that you think's bitter, and you keep Michelle, who has a better relationship with Jason than you do. Or that if you're voting out Jason, then he's going to be pissed off. You know these things. You're on the island with. And if you don't know these things, then you're not reading social cues, and that's a huge part of this game. So, no credit for immunity. We have bitter jury. We have Ty just going where the wind goes, giving her a chance at fire to get her to the finals. Then we have the Neil matter. That's 4 things. And the 5th thing, which you've already touched on, is editing. The most interesting strategic game isn't always the best game. And the game that wins, the best game that gives you a chance to win, isn't always the most entertaining. They don't go hand in hand. There's not a correlation. You look at Danny Boatwright. Not a very interesting way to play the game. Was it successful? Absolutely. You can say it about a number of winners that don't play flashy games. Jeff and the producers and pretty much everyone on Survivor wants to pretty much tell you that this isn't the case. That's why Jeff thinks Aubrey should have won. He wants people to think that playing the most aggressive, the most strategic, and the most flashy game is the way to win. This is not the case. This is not truth.
Yeah.
And it's a narrative that is kind of being, I don't know, it seems to be pretty much believed by a large majority of the audience, as shown with this whole Aubrey-Michelle debate here, that everyone's taking Aubrey's side because she's more strategic.
Yeah.
It's not just a strategic game. It's not about having the most confessionals and the quirkiest one-liners and everything. That's not the game of Survivor. And kind of ranting here, but those are 5 reasons right there why Michelle, I think, was much more deserving than Aubrey. And I guess the biggest reason overall, I kind of mentioned this, Aubrey was sitting there at Final Tribal Council. She had a chance. She had a chance to get the votes, and she didn't. Mm-hmm. So what do you want?
Yeah. And like I always say, I still think Russell should be Natalie White, because we literally saw nothing from Natalie White that whole season. Yeah, you can find her moves and stuff, but like I said earlier, I think she had 15 confessionals that entire season. We didn't hear from Natalie White. We didn't even know Natalie White was a person on that island. And for me, as a fan of the show, it pissed me off when Russell lost, because it's like, how can you put Natalie White as a winner and I don't know anything about her? If you sit here and actually try to tell me you know nothing about Michelle, that's wrong. You heard from Michelle in every episode except 1 or 2. It might have been the back-to-back, and the one was when Kayla got medevaced, and the entire cast didn't get a damn confessional. So, like, to sit here and say you didn't hear from Michelle and she did nothing, it's like, no, you're wrong. She just didn't do what you wanted her to do. And I'm saying Aubrey, but, like, think about this, too. Last thing I think we should say about the Michelle win, and then we should get into, like, this cast and who we want back and stuff. When you're comparing Michelle to other winners, think about the final 7 of this season. This is the end game of this season. The final 7. It's Julia, Jason, Joe, who you can throw out, Sydney, Ty, Aubrey, and Michelle. That is insane competition. That is Joe you can throw out, which makes him a difficult player to play with. The others up against with Julia, Jason, Sydney, and Aubrey, that's incredible competition. And to beat all of them, like, you did something right that entire time to make sure that happened. And you have to give credit to that. You do. It's not like when Natalie White was up against just Russell and nobody else. I mean, Brett, I guess you could say, could have won, but he was another invisible player. Like, Michelle was up against insanely good game-playing competition. And she – so,
I agree with the competition there. That's another very good point that people don't really tend to give Michelle any credit for. I do agree with you, though, about the Russell-Natalie thing. It's the same argument that I'll make with Aubrey. It's like the editors are trying to tell us that playing aggressively and flashy and entertaining games so they had given Natalie more confessionals, and it just wouldn't be that entertaining and interesting, and she wins. It's not beneficial to their product. It's not you. Then you have more people coming out on Survivor and playing a more laid back, under the radar game, taking more aggressive players. I mean, doing things that that you really don't want on TV. You don't want your product to be boring. So I'm not going to take anything away from Natalie White. It's not her fault that she got, so few confessionals. She won the game fair and square, and you got to. When I saw it, I was like bummed because I loved Russell and he played hard. But if you can't deny how the votes shake out. You really can't.
No, you can't.
So
you can, but in terms of gameplay, and I'm not even saying like, I guess it is kind of what we saw, but like to compare Natalie and Michelle, I don't think they're comparable. And like
I understand what you're saying there.
There's different tiers of winners. Michelle played a much, 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 much better game than Natalie White. Natalie White got saved so many times by Russell. Michelle never really got saved by anybody but herself. And you can say that Joe medevac, but why couldn't Michelle have won that immunity? Like, why couldn't she?
I'm not.
She was winning immunities. She won 2 immunities, and she won the last reward challenge.
I'm not saying Michelle and Natalie White are on the same tier, and I know a lot of people are making that comparison, so that's why you're pointing that out.
I'm not doing it against you. Yeah.
What I have a problem with is you saying that Russell should have won some.
I hear you. I lost you. Completely lost you.
It's okay. We're fine. We've kind of beating the subject to death anyway.
This is supposed to be all about Kaoh Rong. So let's talk about. I mean, we have some like Twitter things. If you want to just get into that,
let's just go to comments and things will come up. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know what other questions do we really have. We have people on. We have 3 Kaoh Rong players on season 34. We're going to talk about those players again. Let's get to the comments.
Well, yeah, let's hear that. Jimmy O'Connor, based on what you two thought pre-season, who went beyond your expectations the most and who disappointed you the most? I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say Aubrey. I had her at 18, and you did too.
And I've said this before when we were recapping and predicting, I am never trusting those darn pre-videos, the pre-cast videos, those 90-second clips where they're on the beach going like this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not falling for that again, because the Aubrey we saw there that I did all my fantasy games on was I can't even put into words how different those two people were.
Yeah, no, not even close. So it's funny we just said why Michelle should have beaten her and why she did beat her, but Aubrey was the most surprising by far. Most disappointing for me was Peter. I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but I was kind of high on Peter going into the season. I thought he was going to be a good player. Thought he was going to be useful. Another one was Darnell. Really thought Darnell was going to be – I called him the glue of that tribe before the season started, and he goes out first. So the two of them, for different reasons, one because Darnell went out so early and the other because Peter was just such an idiot. Those two were really the two most disappointing to me.
If we're going to do two, I'm going to just toss in Scott Pollard there as someone who really exceeded my expectations, and he was more entertaining and more into the game than I thought he would be. And he performed pretty well for being such a big physical threat. And then disappointing, you got to go, Joe. He's an FBI agent. And look, I understand he's old, but he had this mentality that I'm just out here for the vacation of it. And that mentality, why cast people like that? It provides nothing to the show whatsoever when you have someone that just wants to be on vacation and then is kind of, just checking something off their bucket list. That's not what I want to see. If you want to go on vacation, go on vacation. Don't take up a spot on my favorite reality TV show. So
I'll say in defense of Joe, because I didn't have high expectations for Joe, but I will say in defense of Joe, he was on the toughest physical season ever. And when you're a 72-year-old guy, I don't think the producers expected Kaoh Rong to be as difficult as it was. And because of how hot and ridiculous the temperatures in Cambodia were, that killed Joe. If you put Joe on a San Juan del Sur, I think you get a lot more out of Joe than on a Kaoh Rong. I just think the low killed him. Because that location made Joe Anglin pass out. You know what I mean? So I give Joe – I don't fault Joe so much for that. I think the location killed him.
Okay. this is something we haven't touched on, but now that you're pointing out, I would like to touch on it, is it the most difficult season ever? And I am going to go ahead and say no, it is not the most difficult season ever. I don't think the number of medevacs necessarily gives you how difficult it was for all players involved across the board. If you look at these medevacs one by one, let's take a look. Caleb medevaced for pushing himself too hard during a challenge. So you had people that were out there that performed the challenge. And I know that one day was extremely hot. We had 3 people pass out. I understand that. And for one challenge on one day, brutal as it's got. But across 39 days, I mean, that had an effect on all 39 days. I'm going to go ahead and say no. There are infections. Yeah, there are infections. Is that the most difficult thing to deal with? Is rain more difficult to deal with than that? And from watching the show, I think the seasons with heavy, heavy, heavy rain or constant storms where they can't do anything, that looks much more difficult, much more miserable. We have seen so many people be broken down by rain, and there wasn't that much rain on this season. And then we get to our third medevac. Joe ate too much food at the reward challenge. Was it a continuously difficult season? I do not think so. I think it was extremely hot. I think you look at each of these medevacs, yes, 3 people went home, but over the course of the season, I would not say it was the most difficult for all players across the board.
All right, I spoke in hyperbole. I apologize. Here's the thing.
Well, no, but I think
if you throw Joe in a situation, no, it is, and I'm gonna bring up a season that I think was the hardest by far, and I think that the most physically demanding season was Survivor Africa. It never rained. They didn't have water. Yeah, eventually they got that huge jug of water. But like, if you go back to early episodes of Survivor Africa, the chick passed out on day 1 because they had no water. They had to go to the stupid like mud pit and pick up the water. They had nothing. And to me, the first 3 seasons of Survivor were more difficult than this season. But I also think the game has changed so much where it's become more of a physical 3 seasons that to throw Joe in a situation like is harder than, let's say, you throw him into the Philippines where the conditions weren't that bad. Or if you throw him into really the Philippines is a big one. If he was on any of those seasons in there, I think he would have been fine.
See, I really do. I don't agree with you there. I think it was Joe's mentality and not so much the conditions. I think he entered the game with the mentality that this is something, a life goal. I want to challenge myself. I'm of old age. Really had no interest in the game, but just was there to survive in the survival aspect and didn't really care about the $1 million. I'm sure he's pretty well off. And that mentality is what disappointed me, not that challenges. I never expected him to kick ass at challenges. You look at Rudy, if you're saying the first 3 seasons were the most difficult, you look at Rudy and, he was there at Final 3 and had a chance to win.
Yeah, just wasn't a super physical season back in 1, but I there's no argument that Joe came in with a mentality of he's not there to play the game. He was there for the adventure. We could have gotten a lot of fun things from Joe, I think, if it wasn't in such a ridiculous situation. I think the setting for him, the location killed Joe's character. He was never going to win the game. He was never coming out there to play Survivor, but it killed his character and killed the fun out of a guy.
Okay, his character.
I think otherwise would have been very
The fun got sucked right out of Joe.
Yeah.
I understand you. Okay.
Yeah. Did you have another one, or are you just going Joe on that? Did you have another person who disappointed you? You better say
Liz kind of let me down a little bit. I had high hopes as well.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Giovanni Oriana, who got Jeremy as a winner pick right? Who got Michelle as a winner pick right? I was Michelle. Will was Jeremy. Who knows? Maybe next season we pick the winner again. Wouldn't that be cool? Morgan, she's a Golden State Warriors fan, dude. She was heartbroken just like you. I had to bring it up at least once. But anyway, who was the least and most memorable boot? If we're talking are we talking tribal council? Are we talking we have to be talking what was the most memorable and what was the least memorable tribal here, right?
hear anything you just said. If you could just repeat the question, that'd be lovely.
Oh, yeah. Her question was, who was the least and most memorable boot? And my question is, are we saying, like, who had, like, the most memorable tribal council when they went out? Like, who had the least memorable? Like, who went out like, the most memorable way or the least memorable way?
Who's the most memorable boot?
Scott, by far, because he didn't get the idol.
It was awesome. That was the best. That was so great. Ty just shaking his head, and Scott was like, "Oh, like dunk." The least memorable, you got to give it to Alicia. I mean, that was probably one of the only tribal councils in history where they didn't even give you anything before it. They just wanted to a little bit as possible and spend more time on Caleb and the dramatics that happen in the challenge. We'd never seen that before, so you could maybe argue it was memorable in itself for not being that memorable.
Yeah.
Next comment.
No, I agree. I think Alicia. So let's see. Giovanni Oriana. I think Michelle, Sydney, Jason, Julia, Nick, Anna, and Darnell to return. I hope Jennifer, Liz, Alicia, and Peter don't return. I guess we could get into this. Who would you like to see play? Would you not like to see play again? I think we did this like in our last podcast, but since this is our post-mortem, Darnell. Whatever on Darnell. He could come back if you really had to.
No,
but
don't.
It's not like necessary to me.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
Boot people. I want to see them play again. You can say you don't want to see them play again. I just don't find much. Like either side. I can't look at Darnell and say I don't want to see him play again because I just didn't see enough of him. But I also didn't see enough of him to warrant him to play again. So it's like I can't really take either side with probably the first 5 boots. We just don't have enough to look at. And maybe there are rare occurrences where someone makes an impression and you're like, oh, they were great in their 3 episodes. You got to bring them back. Similar to, I think, Varner didn't last that long. We'll get voted off episode 4, I think, in Cambodia, and he's being brought back already. So if you can make an impression like that, and obviously he played in Australia, so it's a little bit of a different case, but if you can make a big impression in your few episodes, sure. But Darnell, Jennifer, Liz, not enough.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's interesting. Like the only first boot we've ever seen come back is Francesca, but she was also in 3 episodes of the show. You know, she was a first boot, but she was in 3 episodes. So it was a different situation, and you got to learn more about her because she was than any other first boot.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's tough. I would love to see Kyle come back. I already said I don't want Michelle to come back because I think it's a lose-lose. It's just like if she comes back, people are gonna be like, oh, why would they bring her back? And then she'll do something, and everybody will be like, oh, look how stupid she is. And it's like, all right, internet, like go home and go to bed. You're annoying. So I hope she doesn't come back, although I really liked her. Yeah.
I want to see Kyle back. That's pretty much – I want to see him play again, and I think they're saving him for a later season, hopefully a better cast compared to season 34. We already have Caleb, Debbie, and Ty returning so soon, which we talked about that a little bit already in our season 34 reaction. You can check that out if you haven't already. I don't think we need to talk about either those players anymore.
Mm-hmm. I'll just kind of read these real quick because we already addressed where we think these people stand. So Giovanni Oriana said, I think this season for him would rank between 13 and 16, and he thinks Michelle is a bottom 15 winner, but not a bottom 5 winner. She's a good winner, not a great winner. At number 18, that puts her at a bottom 15 winner. So I guess we agree she's a bottom 15 winner, but it's funny when you put it as she's a bottom 15 winner, it makes it sound bad. If you call her a top 20 winner, it doesn't sound as bad. So it's like a half empty, half full glass, Yeah. Let's see. And then he also goes on to say he has Michelle at number 24 in terms of winners. And he has Kaoh Rong at the 12th best season. So I guess he just went against everything he just said, but that's cool.
Wait, he said Michelle is a – okay, whatever. It seems contradictory what he said.
It's all right. It seems like he was like figuring it out as we were talking, and then he was just kind of live tweeting it.
Okay.
But Max, just Max, he says, "Kaoh Rong player returning for season 34. Do you think will do the best, and who will do the worst?"
I can see Caleb doing the best. I think people who have just seen Ty play, I don't know if they want to trust him all that much. He flipped so many times. Like I said, he kind of just went where the wind blew. That's not someone you really want to have in your alliance or trust. So I could see him getting voted out early. And then Debbie's kind of erratic gameplay. Sometimes she looked great. Sometimes she was just going up to people and telling them you were in my alliance. And then things like this, I don't think her self-awareness is all that high. So I don't think Debbie's going to fare all that well. Of course, she could be a GOAT. So could Ty. But I think Caleb has like the best game mind on his shoulders and has the best chance to win.
Yeah, I think Aubrey's screwed. I think she's the worst.
Yeah, Aubrey's coming back too. That's crazy. I forgot Aubrey is playing. She's going to be labeled as a threat way too early, and I'll probably hurt her.
Yeah. Morgan, it's easy to say in hindsight that Cambodia was predictable, but you guys thought Spencer had a legitimate shot at winning in your older podcast. I don't think it was all that predictable. I know Will always says, but Will thinks, you can't listen to everything Will says. It got predictable that you knew certain, and that's what kind of hurts a little bit as you get to the finale and 3 people can win and 3 people can't. Whereas in the Kaoh Rong finale, you had 3 who could win and only Ty who could. And most people didn't think Michelle could win, and that's what I think is fantastic. I found on the internet who actually does any sort of podcast or articles or webs actually said Michelle could win 5-4 based on votes. Everybody else was saying that she would lose and get maybe 1 vote to everybody. And I'm not talking like Reddit. I'm talking like Inside Survivor, Reality Blur, all those things. I'm the only one, and I want my damn credit. Because everybody said Michelle had no chance. But, I think that's where it comes in with the whole Cambodia being predictable. You just knew Kimmy, Keith, and Tasha weren't going to win going into the finale.
And even Kelly Wentworth was such a long shot to even get to the finals. It was going to be Jeremy or Spencer, likely Jeremy, and that's what ended up happening. And not that predictability is always terrible, but it was the trend of these more recent seasons. The past 5 seasons have gone down the same path. You have Natalie and Mike, and then you can throw in Tyson in there. Cagayan was an exception. But when you get so many in a row, it just worries you man, maybe I've figured out how to watch Survivor. Maybe this is just how it is now. There's going to be one winner. And that's what I loved about Kaoh Rong, because it turned that on its head. You had Aubrey dominating the strategic confessionals. She was the favorite by, like Phil said, pretty much everybody. And Michelle winning, it was amazing. And that final tribal council was so fun to watch, because as it was going on, you're like, holy crap, Michelle, she's getting ripped on earlier, but it kind of, you could see it, the wheels spinning with these votes. And I thought it was an amazing finale, one of the better finales that we've had in a very, very long time. So that's why, I have.
You should write an article. You should write an article about how Michelle winning reaffirmed your belief in Survivor or something. Reaffirm that you're not as smart as you thought you were.
Exactly. It's not even being smart. It's they shove these winners down your throat. You look at Cochran in Caramoan, shoved down your throat. Tyson, shoved down your throat in Blood vs. Water. Again, Cagayan was beautiful. Even though Tony was the most present person, people didn't think it was going to win, and that's why I love Cagayan. I think I have that at number 3. And you just go down the line, and Mike was just so visible and shoved. Mike, no one could win that season except for Mike at final 8. and Second Chance at least had Spencer and Jeremy and Kelly, so that's why. Look, Second Chance I have 3 spots below Kaoh Rong, but Kaoh Rong really, man, it did wonders for me.
I hear you. That's cool. That's good when a show does that, especially one that we like so much. Larry Miller, why does Ann Curtis have a slightly underrated? He's so forgettable and didn't do too much in the game. I don't know, man. Got to ask Ann Curtis. I know she loves him. Giovanni Oriana, I think the most forgettable player was Liz. This into a question that Ann Curtis does ask, who was the most overrated and underrated into it that much. But who would you say the most underrated and overrated from the season, Mark?
I mean, underrated, I think you got to give it to Michelle with, I think, just so many people discrediting her win
100%.
when we have, I think, provided pretty good evidence to, give her credit for her win instead of giving Aubrey all the attention. And I won't say Aubrey's the most overrated because I really am an Aubrey fan and a fan of how she played the game. Overrated, it's tough on this season.
Ty, because people thought, I think Ty, because people thought he could actually win, and he never could win. And I think people loved him so much, and I won't lie, I got a little tired of Ty.
Is this overrated as a character? Is it overrated preseason, or are we talking as of now? Who is overrated?
I don't know. I'll do it however the hell you want. I just rated. I also think Debbie's a little bit overrated. I'm not a huge fan of the Debbie character. I was at the beginning, and then I got tired of her. And the same thing kind of happened with Ty. I thought Ty had some good moments, but I remember talking to my parents before the finale, and they were like, "Ty's going to win," and I'm like, "You guys are dumb. No, he's not. He's not going to get a vote." Sure enough, he didn't get a vote. So I think by the fans, Michelle is the easy answer though. She's underrated in every way. Just in general,
I guess
overrated.
I
don't know.
Character-wise and fan-wise, definitely Ty. I agree with you. It did get a little bit old by the end there. Early on, he was very entertaining though. So I see what you're saying there.
Yeah. Let's see. Ann Curtis, my least favorite seasons are what I call follow the leader season, where one's mastermind and 15 and 19 mindless sheep, like Borneo, the original Blood vs. Water, Micronesia, Redemption Island, South Pacific, One World, Second Chance. So I guess she's not a fan of Second Chance. Might want to go back and rewatch Micronesia. That's not a follow the leader season at all. There's 3 leaders on that season. They're insane. Let's see.
I agree with that though. I don't like follow the leader seasons either.
No, me either. But Micronesia doesn't fall into that category.
It doesn't. Micronesia absolutely doesn't.
No. Let's see. Giovanni Oriana. I think with Aubrey and Russell, we should accept the fact that they lost but can appreciate their good games. I think that's what everybody has to do. And I think the Michelle Aubrey thing is fresh in everybody's minds, but it's you got to look at it with an open mind of, they could edit whatever the hell they want. There's probably plenty of good Michelle footage laying on the floor, and there's a lot of boring Aubrey footage laying on the floor. They could edit it however they want. They just liked Aubrey more than they liked Michelle and thought she was a more interesting character. And Aubrey's going to benefit the show more going forward than Michelle is. Michelle's probably never going to play again. Aubrey's going to play again next season.
She might play 2 seasons. She might play 2 seasons after that.
Exactly. They just want to build her up because she's going to do more for the show. So you got to look at it. You got to look at it with open eyes.
I agree.
Ted McCormick. Why did Probst say he lost brain cells during this season? I mean, it's because Michelle won. I think
it's because Michelle won. It's because of the 3 medevacs. Has the most to do with it.
Mm-hmm. And then Ann Curtis says that her most overrated player was Ty, and most underrated was Jenny or Sydney. So that's interesting.
I could roll with Sydney, but I'm not seeing Jenny that much for being underrated.
Yeah. Giovanni Rihanna. Now I have Michelle at number 20 in my winner rankings after Phil's rant. You're welcome, Michelle. I'm moving you up in other people's rankings.
What about my rant? Did my rant didn't do anything for him?
You know what it is? I think people get us confused sometimes. I'm so backing Michelle, and you have defended Michelle like crazy tonight, so they just assume it's me at this point. I'll take the credit. Let's see. Ann Curtis, Kaoh Rong's in the mess section for me, along with Rosa Parks, Samoa, Tocantins, Africa, Panama, Guatemala, and sorry, Will, San Juan del Sur. It's funny because
wait, in the what? The what section?
The meh. It was all right.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
it's so funny with like Survivor fans. I look at that and like I have some of those seasons in the absolute crap region. I have some of those seasons in like the very good region, and I have some of them in the meh region. So it's like kind of funny that like, you know, there is no right answer. Ann Curtis, this is just who she would love to see Jenny, Neil, and Sydney come back. Scott should never come back. Neither should Peter. I would only like to see Scott and Peter come back if they redeem themselves, like Jerry in Heroes vs. Villains, and Candace and Tyson in Blood vs. Water. I think Scott Pollard's done with the show. Even for a Heroes vs. Villains, I think they would bring back Kyle instead of Scott, just because Kyle was a little bit more villain.
Yeah, for sure.
And last, oh no, we just got another one, so I can't say last. Ann Curtis, so far Michelle is in the middle, but I fear that I'm going to forget about her later down the line, like I barely remember Danny. Totally makes sense. If you look at it from that way, it's just like, you know, you have to go back and rewatch it to be reminded of the good game she played. Larry Miller, Kaoh Rong is a train wreck season like Gabon, San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua. God, there's Gabon getting thrown in there again, Willie. How does it make you feel?
You know, it's like you look and you can call a season a mess, and then that for some reason and for some people that determines how good it is and how entertaining it is. Like because they're both kind of messy, that they're all on the same tier, which it's like the medevac thing. Like just because a season has 3 medevacs, like you don't just assign it like some arbitrary figure. I mean, 3 medevacs, boom. But how about you look at how entertained you were? So when you watch Gabon, was it a mess? Absolutely. It was a total mess, but it was more of an entertaining mess and just more unpredictable, better characters than San Juan del Sur. So I have San Juan del Sur, well, let's see. I have it at 28th out of 32. I have Gabon at 4 out of 32. Would I say they're both messes and group them into that? Absolutely, but that doesn't determine my enjoyment of them or how entertaining they were. What other messes did the commenter say?
Nicaragua and Kaoh Rong. So Nicaragua's a mess too.
Nicaragua is a mess. I have that at 23, and then I have Kaoh Rong also a mess at 9. So I have 2 in the top 10, 2 in the bottom 10. I don't think how messy a season is determines, you know, how entertaining it is. It's how good the cast is and, you know, how entertaining the episodes are, not how messy it is. A mess can be good, a mess can be bad.
I'm excited to do another season rankings. I think this is going to be good because we have changed our opinions as much as we want to say that we like, you know, nothing's in stone, and we have changed our opinions. So I think it's going to be fun to do another one. I think we should do that one soon. But anyway, let's go over to YouTube because there's still things here. Joseph Haas, love the podcast. You're back. I think you guys should do a season rankings again. Going off when you made the channel, you did the first 29. I would put Worlds Apart around 15 to 20, Kaoh Rong 11 to 15, and Second Chance 6 to 10.
Worlds Apart that high? Oof.
I know, man. Worlds Apart drops like every day. Every day it goes down another spot.
It might be below Redemption Island.
No, come on. Don't be stupid. But yeah, it really does. Jimmy O. Michelle deserved to win. That's a fact. It disappoints me so much that people are so close-minded about her win because one of their favorite players didn't win. Not only did she deserve to win, she's also a good winner. I would argue she played a better game than Aubrey and Kaoh Rong. Loving this podcast so far. Completely agree with all these points. Don't get me wrong. Aubrey deserved to win. Michelle just deserved to win more. That's put like a champ. That's exactly what we're trying to say.
Put like a champ, except for the last thing. You can't have 2 people deserving of the win when there is only one winner.
I disagree because Ozzy and Yule both deserve to win. And it just so happened that there can only be one winner. And I would have been fine with either of them winning.
Yeah, but it's like you can't say Aubrey deserved to win because she was sitting someone next to her that deserved it more. Thus, Aubrey didn't deserve it because there's only one winner.
She played a winner-worthy game. No, she played a winner-worthy game. She just was up against somebody who played a better winner-worthy game. I still think winner-worthy, even if you lose. That's different than deserving, though. You can play a winner-worthy game and still not deserve it. Only one person deserves it. And that's Boston Rob, who lost to Amber. I'll bring it up every time, you son of a bitch. I'll bring it up every time.
Yeah, Amber deserved it. She played a winner-worthy game, and she got the votes.
Yeah. 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 Giovanni Oriana, I think when you do your winner rankings, you should rank them by how much they dominated and how much they controlled their outcome of their season, but it's your rankings and everything. The thing with doing it that way is it's impossible because then you have to put Boston Rob at number 1 and Cochran at number 2, and neither of them deserve to be 1 or 2 because they played 14 times.
And again, this goes in.
That's like the biggest problem.
This goes into the narrative that is just that you need to be in control of everyone at all time in order to win. And if someone's out of control, you need to vote them out and be aggressive. That's not necessarily true. You can win this game without being in control of everybody and dominating it. Like it's a misconception to think that that's the only way to win. We see it just disproven season after season, like both of Sandra's wins, Danny's win, Michelle's win here. It is kind of interesting that seems to be more true for female winners, and that may have something to do with editing and confessionals, because Survivor does have a more majority of Survivor fans are male audience. I think it's something like, I don't know, it's probably 60-40, maybe 65-35 in favoring males. But you can play different levels of ways to win. I'm not going to rank them by how much they controlled. You have Kim, who was in control completely. And she did a very, very good job of that. So there's a female that was dominant.
Yeah. All right. Giovanni Oriana, who is the most annoying person of the season? God. I would probably say Debbie, even though I liked Debbie at first, but she just got overbearing.
Yeah, Debbie was my first thought too. Trying to think, is anyone
actually
else
Peter? Screw Peter. Peter was an ass.
Yeah, but that's different than annoying. But him being an ass was funny. That provided entertainment when he's being so cocky and so aloof and not understanding that like he's not in control at all. That's funny and that's entertaining, and that didn't get annoying. Debbie became annoying. If Peter had lasted longer in the game, yes, he probably becomes more annoying than Debbie, but that was not the case. So I will stay with Debbie. That's fair.
Giovanni, again, in Africa, I believe they had to drink poop water. Yeah, Africa was ridiculous. Do you think, this is Giovanni as well, do you think the bullying incident will be seen less? Sydney said on RHAP, it wasn't bullying. Thoughts? I mean, this is fun. We didn't even address this. There was no bullying on this season. People just want to label it and get butthurt over everything.
Yeah, you can't call someone a name when they're really ticking you off and you have to live with them 24/7. You can't call them a name. You can't have free thinking and thought because you will be considered to be a bully. Absolute nonsense. If you're offended by someone calling you a name, as an adult, you should be able to take that, not let that offend you, and rise above it. So that's what I have to say on that.
Yeah, we'll jump off that subject before Will gets arrested. Tori, surprisingly want to see Julia back the best. I think she'll be able to improve a lot on her second time out and will be a lot of fun. Other than that, I just want to point out why bitter jury should not be taken into account when deciding a winner's position. People say that Michelle only won because the juries are meaning Aubrey should have won. But why are bitter juries classified as undeserving? Being bitter is how humans function. In fact, almost every jury has a few bitter people on it. On Survivor, you have to take it into consideration, your jury management, and that was Aubrey's downfall. Exactly.
I completely agree. If you know you're dealing with bitter players, might not want to bring Michelle. You might want to keep Sydney closer, someone that has betrayed the people that are going to be voting for you, and bring Ty, who also betrayed the people that are going to be voting for you in the end. She never made that move. So to call her strategic mastermind really is a mislabeling of Aubrey. If she was, she would have gotten rid of Michelle out much.
And I would love to see. And just for the record, I would also love to see Julia come back. I think she's a great young female player who's more than a pretty person in a bikini, and I think that is really good for the show, which struggles sometimes with bringing back 10 solid female characters. Julia is definitely a solid person to bring back.
In agreement there.
Woo! Giovanni on Twitter, Jeff Varner tweeted a few things today. I thought he was supposed to be filming. Maybe he's not on the season. Jeff Varner's a troll, man. Jeff Varner's a troll doing his Twitter account. He's got somebody doing his Instagram. Jeff Varner's a troll. He's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, okay. I didn't know what happened. Gamer Girl 2330. What are your thinking on Neil? All because he had a temper tantrum on being the jury twist victim. I don't like it. I think Neil was fine. I liked Neil.
Did he throw a temper tantrum? I was not aware of this.
He definitely threw a temper. Well, he threw a temper tantrum at Michelle, like yelling, like calling that whole speech he did to Michelle on his way out, suckling at the teats. That's what people are talking about.
Okay,
that was unnecessary.
I would not consider that a temper tantrum. I think he had every right to do that. If you're on the jury and you've been on the jury forever since he was the first jury member, I know Nick got to Ponderosa before him, but he was out of the game the longest. And when you're out of the game the longest, you're thinking about your role in the game. People are selfish. He's been thinking about how he can influence the decision and outcome of this season that he was participating on. That was stripped away from him. So instead of walking out without saying anything, he's like, look, I can say something now. I'm not going to get to vote, but I can at least make my jury speech. This was his jury speech, essentially. Giving Aubrey the shout out, trying to knock down one of Aubrey's competitors. I am totally okay with it. It clearly didn't have an influence, and it did not succeed. And it might have even hindered Aubrey's game, which makes it even more of a smart move by Michelle, who was rewarded that for winning a challenge, something that somehow, I don't know, Michelle did that.
It gets overlooked that Michelle made that move too. And I know it's a first, and it's the only time it's ever happened. It might be the only time it does happen. But you're handed, and she won that reward, and she played the same thing as when Tony got his super idol. He acted like he could use it. What was it? He acted like he could use it after a vote or what? No, because he could use it. Whatever his whole thing was.
This is what he said. He says he can play it. He said he can play it after the votes have been read. I think that's what he said. I think he also – wait, no, he did have that. That was the real one. He says he could play it at final
four. Yeah,
which
exactly.
So production didn't even think someone would come up with that. And it's using that to the best of your advantage, and that's why I don't really discredit Tony for finding that idol, because he put it to use better than anyone else who would have found it.
Yes. And just like you can't fault Michelle for, doing that, even though it's the first time she did it perfectly. Giovanni Ariano, what did you think of Edgic this season? I don't really look too much at Edgic, but I know they thought Aubrey was going to win, so
I don't look at like the individual boxes and colors and everything, but in terms of looking at the edit and predicting a winner, we do that quite often. So we do participate in the edit discussion, and I thought Aubrey was the front runner for a very long time. I was proven wrong. And I could not be more thrilled that I was proven wrong. I've said this before on this podcast. It is awesome that the person who got the most confessionals, that was kind of the star of the post-merge and the narrator of the show, didn't end up winning, because we have seen that too much in recent seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Gamer Girl 2330, how dare you, person who said I was obsessed with Ben. Crush does not equal obsession. Calm down. Yeah, calm down, dude.
Hey, I love that line. Crush does not equal obsession. I think Phil could.
I'm going to use that on every girl I've ever met.
No, but I mean, in terms of
obsession.
Yeah, in terms of like Liz and Anna, I was getting these things like, "Will, you're so obsessed." It's like, oh my gosh, like, come on. I think they're attractive people on my favorite TV show. Let's take a step back. I like that line.
Crush does not equal obsession. That's a great line. I'm telling you, that's a great line. Let's see. Oh, Gamer Girl 2330 on her Follow the Leader season thing. She thinks Second Chance is the best of all of those. Giovanni, do you think Jeff lost brain cells on Cambodia? The votes were much more complicated than Kaoh Rong. I think he's just a baby that Michelle won, and he's still not over it. And Jeff needs to grow up and be like an advocate for the show and not be a baby because person he wanted to win didn't win.
But what Jeff is doing is trying to have people come on Survivor and play aggressive, fast, strategic games. That's what he wants. That's what the fans value. That's what brings in money. That's what keeps the show going on. That makes his product better. So Jeff is trying to achieve that goal, and him saying Michelle deserved to win doesn't fit that. even though Michelle does deserve to win, as we've laid out. So I don't think it's as much of Jeff being a baby as Jeff being a smart and competent producer and businessman. I think he wishes Aubrey would have won.
He's still a baby.
He is a little bit, but I understand, the incentive to kind of continue this. You have to make big moves. He says it on every season. He's going to continue saying it, and I can't really dock him for it because at the end of the day, I want to see more seasons of this show. And if that's what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. We can podcast and talk about it and say why he's wrong, all we want, and defend Michelle and people that are kind of screwed by the edit. But if there's no show on the air, we don't even have anything to watch or anything to talk about. So I'm okay with him saying these things.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I get what he's doing, but I'm going to call him a baby. Jacob Geitman. Aubrey played a good game post and pre-merge. Michelle only played a good post-merge game. I honestly think that Aubrey deserved it more. Also, what are your opinions on nobody from San Juan del Sur returning for season 34? I am absolutely 100% fine with it. I don't want to see John Mitch play again. I don't like Jacqueline. Missy sucks.
Yeah, didn't we just have 3 of them play one season ago? I mean, is there any?
The only one I would want to see again would be Josh. This is the only one that I would even remotely want to see again. Well, yeah, I always forget about Baylor. Baylor, God, she kills the Instagram game. She kills everything. Baylor's great. A crush is not an obsession, don't forget. But, yeah, Baylor kills it. But, no, definitely Josh. In, like, a realistic sense, Josh is the only one that I would ever want to see play again out of that cast.
I could see Drew Christie play again. That would be about it for me.
That'd be something. Micah Ferguson, not including jury members in Kaoh Rong, do you think deserve another chance to play the game? I think Anna completely, 100%, because she got screwed.
I'm not against seeing Anna play again.
Yeah, mainly seeing, right? You don't want to hear her, you just want to see her.
Well, it's a TV show, so when you watch a TV show, you don't say I watch and listen to a TV show. It's usually included in that verbiage. So,
Joseph Haas wants us to know that he is Steel Punch. So now Steel Punch takes off his mask and lets us know who he is. Here's an interesting one, and I think this is a good one. This might be what we end on. Let me find out in 2 seconds. Wait, we might have one more. Oh, yeah, Jacob Geitman, Natalie Anderson, she should return. Natalie Anderson can return. That's fine. But that's like a winner, so whatever. But anyway, Paul Tafoya, and this is one that I think is fun for you because you love this. Who deserved to win more, Aubrey, Russell, or Ozzy in Cook Islands? Because I know you love the Ozzy and Cook Islands thing. So who deserved to win more out of those 3? And who do you think lost to the best winner?
That is a good question. This is fun. I think the way Russell played the game, game-wise, much better than Natalie. But when it's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy here. He shot himself in the foot just so early on and even at the merge by just being spiteful, just dishonest, disrespectful human being to other people to vote you to give me $1 million. So it's not Russell. We talked about Aubrey. It's not Aubrey because, I mean, 5-2, Michelle. Aubrey had every opportunity to either get Michelle out or, I don't know, she at least was at Final Tribal Council and same with these others, but Aubrey's not more deserving than Michelle. I got to go with Ozzy here. I think you saw this coming pretty much because, and it's not even based on like, I know we talk about social game and Ozzy is now so arrogant. He wasn't arrogant back in Cook Islands. He wasn't. And Yule had this super idol, which wasn't a super idol yet. It was a normal idol, but he was never going to get voted out. And I don't know. I've made better points about this before when Cook Islands was more fresh, and maybe you remember them, but it seemed like Ozzy dominated in more facets of the game. He was better at challenges. Strategically, he did everything Yule did without having an idol. I mean, Yule gets so much credit for the strategy of this season just because he's the most book smart guy. that's not necessarily true. Ozzy was, doing strategic things and talking strategy with Yule. Again, I wish this was more fresh in my head, but I think Ozzy, out of those three, Ozzy's the most deserving.
I want to say, and I know you're going to disagree with me because you do on this, but I really think the most deserving is Russell. And here's my reason. I don't think in Heroes versus Villains to beat Sandra. If Parvati would have won, I would have had problems with it for the same reason I have problems with Natalie beating Russell. Russell saved Natalie so many times. Without Russell, Natalie doesn't sit there. Russell saved Natalie so many times, and yeah, he should have gotten rid of her. But I still think that the problem with that one is Natalie doesn't get to the end without Russell. Michelle gets to the end on her own. Ozzy gets to the end on his own. Natalie doesn't get to the end without Russell. That's what in this situation is. In Heroes versus Villains, Russell in that game. But Russell, there were times when he literally, handed Parvati an idol. And I know she found one on her own, and I know Parvati played a really good game. But, Russell was, when you go back and rewatch that, you see, without Russell, Parvati goes home very early in that game. Without the Tyson move, Russell goes home, or Parvati goes home very early in that game. And that's the same thing that kind of happened with Natalie. If it wasn't for Russell and Yenda moves, but Russell finding all the idols and Russell doing this, that, and the other thing, Natalie would not be sitting at the end without Russell. Whereas Ozzy and Michelle and Yule sit at the end without Ozzy and Aubrey.
I hear what you're saying, but when you get down to final tribal council and you have to vote for somebody, and it's between Natalie and Russell, and one of them has literally done so many things to make you not want to give $1 million, and that's what you're doing when you vote for somebody, and the goal of the game is to get votes. It's how can you say he deserved to get votes when he did actions that are directly in opposition to the goal of the game? And that's where I go with Ozzy.
I don't know. I just feel like Ozzy didn't do anything that wrong, and he still lost to Yule because people still respected Yule so much. And I feel like in the Russell thing, I'm not going to sit here and say it was a bitter jury necessarily, but I just feel like Russell did so much to save Natalie. Ozzy did it on his own. He didn't save Yule. He didn't have to do anything for Yule. Ozzy and Yule just worked together. Whereas there were certain times where it was Russell always had the bigger target. Natalie never had the target. Russell was always the one in danger of going home, but Russell always found a way. And if Russell goes home at any point there, Natalie's the next one for it all. Or the one after that. Jason and Natalie would have all been gone if Russell didn't do what he did in that season.
I hear you. I need to, I guess, look. It's probably in our prior winter rankings when I talk about Yule. That will be somewhere in there. I think I had a much better point, a much better case for Ozzy. I haven't seen that season in probably 2 or 3 years, so it's kind of not that fresh. But it's a good question, and thank you for your comments. Do we have any more?
No, that's it. We'll try to be a little more punctual with our next podcast. Maybe season rankings. I know we weren't huge on it, but now it almost seems like we should because I don't know. We've changed.
Yeah, there's a lot of change. There's three new seasons, 2 of which have been very good. So yeah, we'll just do some throughout the summer. We'll try to do once a week. Not sure if that's going to happen. Phil and I are both very busy, but thank you so much for listening. If you could help us out, subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you haven't, and then leave some comments about off-season podcast ideas. We've already thrown out 2, the season rankings and winter rankings. We've done both of those already, but if you have other ideas that we haven't even touched on before, definitely let us know. We do have a Legends draft that we did in the winter off season, that short off season. So check out the Legends draft. You can check out our prior winter rankings, our prior season rankings if you haven't checked those out yet. So lots of off season stuff to watch already that won't be new. But yeah, if you're in the mood for Survivor content and we're not posting as frequently, you can check those out. Phil, do you have anything else?
No, thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter. Do that. Follow us on Twitter. That's where we normally tell people when we're going to go live and stuff. So follow us on Twitter, tweet at us. Yeah, I like your idea. Give us some off-season podcast ideas, like what you guys really want to see.
And
just totally lost you.